does the HIPAA law require of your practice and what you could do about it? And everybody should have a folder. If you don't, let us know. We'll give you one. And we're going to refer to some material in the folder as I go along, so please have it handy. Also, what do you need to know to be HIPAA compliant? It's important because there's close to 8,000 new auditors that have been hired that will be trying to make and earn their dollars, which meaning they'll be auditing a lot of different practices. How can you best protect your patients and practice from HIPAA breaches? We're also going to talk about how can you train your staff to be HIPAA compliant, because your staff need to understand the importance of it, and they are also responsible for a lot of the compliance that you put together and all the policies and procedures that I'm sure everyone here written inside and out. No? Okay. But we'll help you through it. What are some of the ways your patient's PHI can be breached? It's important to know. And what do you do in the event of a breach? I hope everybody here knows what it is, but if you don't, by the time we're done, you will. And what information can be sent via email, and what should be encrypted and what shouldn't be encrypted? What is encryption in general? And if you're not doing that, it's a big red flag, but we're going to get into the details of it and how you could accomplish this. And we're going to talk about a lot more. Ultimately, we're going to cover how to avoid being a sitting duck to secure your network and become HIPAA compliant. I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm Ikram Massabini. Say that 3 times really fast. I'm the CEO of MVP Network Consulting. MVP has been open for about 15 years. I have 17 years experience in healthcare IT, not only dental, but healthcare in general. I'm a HIPAA consultant and an auditor, so I do perform the audits myself and help make sure that you're compliant and do the risk assessment that comes along with it. I'm certified IT consultant. I'm an IT geek, so I'm an engineer by trade, if you will. I have multiple technical certifications. MVP, we've been open for 15 years. We have 44 employees, give or take, and we focus on healthcare IT. That's what we do. So having said that, I may know a couple things about HIPAA. I've been studying it for the last 8 years. It keeps changing, but we stay on top of it. So I hope you find the material beneficial. So to get started, I'll give you a little bit of history of HIPAA. And HIPAA really started in 1996, and it stands for Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. So HIPAA came out in 96, and after that, privacy rules came out in 2003, and the security rules came out in 2005. And then the omnibus rule came out in 2013, and keep adding more rules to the game here. But it's important. It's important because HIPAA serves a purpose. It's not just more paperwork that you need to do for no particular reason. And we'll get into that. So it provides a framework for establishment of nationwide protection of patient confidentiality, security of electronic systems, and standards and requirements for electronic transmissions. So there's 3 major pieces of HIPAA. The privacy rule, the security rule, and EDI, electronic data interchange. How can you transfer data between different providers or business associates? Privacy rule is the privacy for the patients and their rights, and the security rules is security from an IT perspective, from a network perspective, and also a physical security perspective. So when you do an audit, and we do a HIPAA audit, we actually walk around the facility and look at every device where the screens are pointing. Do they lock? Don't they lock? Can somebody grab the laptop and run out the door with them? What are you doing to protect all that? So there's a lot of stuff that we look at. So having said that, privacy rule came out in April 14th of 2003. The privacy refers to protection of an individual's healthcare data. You know, it gave patients the capability of having the rights to not share their healthcare information with other people, whether it being jobs, if they're, you know, their health information is protected because they can be discriminated against if somebody knows something about them. So it's very important for you to be aware of this and to be aware of that you're responsible for the privacy of all the data that you collect. Kind of like a bank. If you give your bank your information and your money, You don't want them to be hacked. You don't want the stuff to go away. As somebody that I go to, one of my providers, I don't want to hear that my provider lost my data and they got hacked and now my data is out there somewhere. So that's where privacy rule came out, and it's a standard of rules that if you adhere to it, nobody's 100% secured, but if you adhere to it, you're not the low-hanging fruit. So I'm going to give you some steps that you can take that are easy to do that will secure you, hopefully more than you're secured right now. Okay, next is the security rules. So security rules came out in April 21 of 2005, and it's basically about confidentiality of electronic protected health information, or EPHI, storage of EPHI, and access of EPHI. So that's the security side. The security side is really the data itself. How do you secure data? And because most people here now use EHR systems, and I hope you do. If you don't, we really need to talk. But if you do, and because you have to, it's important to know that you're responsible for it. It made the healthcare providers and their business associates liable for the security of the patient information. So it's not only you who's responsible, but anybody that you work with is responsible, and you're responsible for making sure that they're aware that they're responsible. Does that make sense? How many responsibility there is here? Quite a bit. The last piece is EDI, electronic data interchange. Really is how you transfer data in between your facility and people that you work with, a lab, any business associate that you work with. You're responsible for it. And you're responsible for the transfer of it and for it to get received by them securely so that it can't fall in the wrong people's hands. And you're responsible for it if it sits on your network itself. You're responsible for that security. So that's what EDI does. This is overall what HIPAA is all about. And these are 18 PHI identifiers. This is the stuff you're responsible for. You're not responsible for everything in the chart. So that's something that's important for you to know. But you're responsible for name, zip code, birth date, phone number, fax number, email address, social security number, medical record number, health plan beneficiary, account number, certificate, VIN number, if you carry that. I hope you don't. Any device identifier or serial numbers that can refer back to that patient, you're responsible for it. And the list goes on. Your IP address, biometric identification, full-face photos, and any other unique identifiers. So that's what you're responsible for, the 18 PHIs. So in 2013, like I said, the Omnibus rule came out and updated some regulation. It's about 500 pages of changes, and that's the most sweeping changes to HIPAA made since its inception. Copies of EPHIs, doctors will now have only 30 days to respond to a patient's written request. I hope you know that. So if you have a patient's request, you have 30 days to respond. Emailing PHIs, you're responsible for that email transmission to be received securely. Breach notification, if you do get breached and you're aware of it, you're responsible to let everybody know that you got breached, and you're responsible for any repair that needs to be done because of that breach. So in other words, if you get hacked and somebody grabs all your patient records, including social security numbers, you may have to buy each one of those patients a credit monitoring system. So that way, if they do get, because their social security's out there now, and you're the one responsible that got them out there, think about the amount of expense that you can go through. The whole idea here is to be secure, do the right things. 95% of all breaches happen because of human error. And that's why training is important. And you're responsible for marketing communication of any breach that happens. In other words, not only do you have to let your patients know, you have to actually alert the media and let them know that this breach happened. Everybody heard about ECMC, a small little breach that happened, cost $10 million, and still trying to repair it. But they had to let everybody know. They couldn't keep that on the wraps. The Dent Tower, people remember that in our area. It happened, and they had to let everybody know. Not only the 300 people that were in that sheet that they sent out, but everybody had to be aware of it. So be aware of that. You're responsible for it. Some people are breached, and they don't know they are. But it's still your fault if you don't know you are. You have to be responsible for your data. It's not, if you say, well, I didn't even know I was breached. You were breached. You don't have the right security in place. You become responsible for it. So who has to comply with HIPAA? Well, covered entities, which is healthcare providers, dental offices, dentists, doctors, psychiatrists, chiropractors, nursing homes, and anybody that they work with, any business associate they work with. Companies that support covered entities, labs, software companies, IT companies, accounting firms, and any subcontractors they use have to be responsible for. Anybody that touches your PHI is responsible. You have to make sure that they're aware, and you have to make sure that they sign a BAA agreement with you that dictates what they're responsible for and what you're responsible for. Have everything in writing and signed. So why is HIPAA important? Well, it outlines ways to prevent accidental and intentional misuse of PHI. It's not just about HIPAA, it's about doing the right thing. It's about really protecting your patients that entrusted you not only with their health and health of their mouth and their health overall, but with also all their data and their important information. You hold that and you're responsible for it. So it's about doing the right thing by your patients. And shows our commitment to managing electronic protected health information, or EPHI, with the same care and respect as we are our private information. You don't want your data out there. I'm sure everybody here wouldn't want that. So since you're responsible for that data for your patients, you want to make sure that it's not out there. So why is training important? Because like any professional football team or any team in general, training is as important as they come, because training makes you better at what you do. So when you give your employees training, they now are more aware of what to look for. The way ECFC got hacked, it got hacked through a phishing email. Somebody received an email, and it looked legitimate. It looked like they should double click on it, because it looked like it came from somebody that worked at ECMC. They spoofed their email address. So it looks like it's coming from the CEO or their manager. And it says open right away. It looks important. But if you paid attention, if they paid attention, they would have noticed that the email address wasn't exactly the same. It was not .org, it was .net. They added an extra, a lot of people add an extra letter to the email address. Or they just spoof it and make it look like it's right, but if you go to the header of the email, you'll notice that the email is actually not correct. So the training should show your employees what to look for, not only in emails coming in, but when they're browsing the web. Which website is secure and which one isn't? What do you look for in a browser to know what to do? If you're watching a video online, a lot of people get hacked because of cat videos. Believe it or not, cat videos are rampant on the internet. 60% of videos are cat related. I made that statistic up, but it's a lot of cats. And what hackers will do is they'll put a very cute video, and I don't know if anybody's seen the video where there's a cat and somebody goes like this to the cat and she raises their hand real high. It was everywhere. That video costs more hacks in all over the world than anything else. It's such a cute cat. However, what they do is embed code within the video as you're streaming it. They're able to jump locations in your RAM, and then now they're inside your computer, no longer in that video you're streaming. And then they can jump around on your network. What they're looking for is some data. So inside your booklet, we'll talk about HIPAA with the numbers, why they're trying to hack you. Do they care about the patient's records? Well, they care about making money. It's all about money. So they can sell that information on the black market, on the dark web. And that's why you're being hacked.
So is Facebook the worst place to look at the videos?
It's not the best place.
Okay.
Facebook is just another website. They try to be as protective as possible, but close to 600,000 Facebook accounts get hacked every day. So yes, Facebook is completely wide open. The worst piece of software is Flash. Everybody updates Flash, right? Everybody knows what Flash is in your browser to play the video.
Right.
Flash is as hacked as they can be. If a video has Flash in it, it's easy to get access to that video, embed code right in it. And in my former life, I was told to say that. I don't do that anymore. I'm in IT, so I maybe hacked one or two things. But there's a lot of different ways to gain access, maliciously or just for fun. And you say, for fun? Yeah, some people just want to see if they can gain access or not. One of the audits we do an external vulnerability scan, which will try to hack your network from the outside without knowing your credentials or anything like that. And a lot of times we'll just leave a note on your desktop when you come in the morning so you know we made it and show you what happened. It's fun. Our techs like to see who's going to get there first, what have you. But we're the good guys. We're not the ones trying to get your data, right? We're the ones trying to protect you from other people coming in. So why do we need to protect PHI? Well, number one is the law. Let's not forget that. You can get audited. You can go to jail. Because if you don't have a risk assessment done and you get audited, or one of your patients actually calls in and complains because something happened, and they come in and they see you wide open, that means you're on purpose did not do the things that you were supposed to do. The fine is a lot bigger, including jail. But if you've done the right things and you have your risk assessment and you still got hacked, but your fine is a lot less now because you've done all the extra work. Does that make sense? That's how we look at it. It's what have you done to protect that data that you now hold so dear and you're responsible for. One is to protect your reputation, to avoid potential withholding of federal Medicaid and Medicare funds, and to build trust between providers and patients. Because really it's about trust between your patients who trust you not only with their health, but also with their data. So who or what protects PHI? So there's three different things. One, the federal government. It protects PHI through HIPAA regulations, civil penalties up to $1.5 million per year for individual types of identical types of violation. I'll explain that in a second. Within neglect of violation are mandatory. In other words, if you willfully neglect, like I was just saying, your network and your data and your security, you did not train your employees, the fines become a lot higher. Criminal penalties, $50,000 fine in 1 year in prison, $100,000, that's for knowingly obtaining and wrongfully sharing information, $100,000 for obtaining and disclosing through false pretense, and $250,000 and 10 years in prison for obtaining and disclosing for commercial advantage, personal gains, and malicious harm. So we've done it on purpose. The second piece is not the federal government, is your organization, your brand, your company, with everybody that works in it, through the notice of privacy practice. So I'm sure you have everybody here has a privacy practice that everybody signs before you start working on them. That's one way to do it, because you can put in a lot of language in there that will protect you. Some people just go online and catch whatever one they find. Hopefully they find a good one. You should really read it and go into detail with it and find out what's in it. And then you, personally, not you as a business owner, but you as individuals that work in the actual practices, well, by following policies and procedures that the practice put in place, you should be able to be compliant. And that's the three people that protects the PHI. Enforcement is the public. The public is educated about their privacy rights and will not tolerate violations, so they will call, and that's how audit starts. Somebody calls in and say, yeah, I went to see my doctor and he didn't have me signing this, and I noticed that I can see somebody else's information, and they will complain. Office for Civil Rights, the OCR office, the agency that enforces the privacy regulation, providing guidance and monitoring compliance. And then the Department of Justice. After you go there, hopefully you don't make it to that, but agency involvement in criminal privacy violations, provides fines, penalties, imprisonments to offenders. I mean, there is a doctor locally who not only had a big violation of HIPAA, but had the FBI involved because he was doing stuff on purpose. Okay, can anybody guess what this number is? It's a dollar amount, I understand that. Anybody? Whoever gets it gets a book. Okay. All right, well, it's the estimated cost for every stolen record, healthcare record. That's how much it would cost you. because of reputation damage, because of loss of clients, because of class action lawsuits, because of legal fees, compliance lawsuits, replacement of data, that's the big one, downtime, loss of productivity. The key point here is just because you're a small business, a small practice, that doesn't mean people don't want your data. You're just as liable as the big boys and have to have the same type of security in place like everybody else. So what are you doing to be a good steward for your patients' information? 40 to 45 million patients' records are compromised since 2009. However, that number is skewed because not everything is reported. We think that only less than 500 patients' healthcare records are, if less than 500 patients' healthcare records are compromised, people don't report it. They're hoping nobody will tell. They're hoping nobody knows, because they're hoping they don't want their reputation to be tarnished. But the thing is, if one patient decides to say, hey, wait a minute, and then decides to call, not only does your reputation tarnish, but it looks like you hid it. Now you're in a deeper hole than you were before. There's some good news, by the way, in the presentation, so I'll get there. 40% of offices managing their own networks will be hacked. And I can tell you this much, it's only 7% if you have a professional doing it that will be hacked. Because you're no longer a low-hanging fruit. Professionals do stuff on your network that people that understand networking enough just don't know exist. One thing you don't want to do is have this be your face on a newspaper article written in the Business First or Buffalo News or Niagara Gazette or whatever it may be. You know, local medical offices losing 844 social security numbers. Or one like this that will say, you know, spyware infected computer leaks medical information, cost practicing $12,000, which is a small amount. I mean, ECMC is 10+ million, but they're a much bigger firm, but it's still a hack that happened. And so what happened is ransomware. Anybody here familiar with what ransomware is? Okay, so ransomware is a piece of software. It's a software. It's not a virus that gets loaded on your computer. And just to let you know, the reason why virus protection doesn't stop them, because only a piece of the ransomware, only one small file gets loaded on your computer. And that file calls out to what we call a CNC server and grabs other files. And these files get downloaded to your computers and get installed on your computers while you're using it. And then it forms that virus. And now that it's on your computer and it's local to your network, it goes out and encrypts all your data. And it usually happens 4 or 5 days before you notice something happened. And when you come double click on your Word document, a big thing comes up and it says, you've been hacked. You have we need a ransom. You have to pay a ransom. It could be $1,500. It could be, it depends on how much. It really depends on the amount of data that you have and the hacker that sent you that virus. And then the only way to pay it is through Bitcoin. So you have to go buy Bitcoins because it's not traceable. $1 billion in 2016 was spent in the United States on ransomware attacks. All right. Now there's a new attack out there, just to let you know that once you get a ransomware, they say, well, you could pay us that $1,500, or you could send this email to 2 other people you don't like, because but they know you, and they're probably going to click on your email. And if they get infected, guess what? You no longer have to pay the ransom, but they will. And it becomes a pyramid scheme, right? So there's a lot that you've got to be aware of, and there's a lot that's happening, and it's all about money. So have there been any HIPAA breaches in practices? Quite a bit. One way is the HIPAA breach is theft. If you lose a laptop. Now, if your laptop is not encrypted, and you have a laptop that you reach your data with, and you have email on it, what have you, but it has a password, so you actually have to put a password to get in. But it's not, the hard drive itself is not encrypted. The issue with that is, I can remove your if you lost a laptop, I can remove your hard drive out, plug it to another computer, and read all your data. Now, Windows won't load because I don't have that password, but I can get your data, and I can get all your information. The big piece here is, now, you lost a laptop, and you lost everybody's data. You wouldn't care if you lost a laptop if the data wasn't compromised. If you encrypt your laptop, and this is something very inexpensive to do, by the way, if you encrypt it and somebody finds your laptop and takes your hard drive out, none of the data is readable because it's encrypted. They need a decryption key. And when Windows load, the decryption key happens. That's why you're able to use it. So this is some of the stuff that you should be aware of. So when a breach happens, you have to notify everyone. If you cannot get a hold of 10 of them, you have to now publish it in the media. At this point, you have to have a credit report for all patients because of identity theft. If you go to this website, HHS breaches, do that search, HHS breaches, you will find all the doctors that had to go out there and you'll find some locally that had to go out there and tell the media that they've been hacked. And they try to keep it under wraps, but they will. I put this slide up because this is, you can't read it that well, but the idea here is, there's penalties and there's jail. So, patient rights. The patient has the rights to receive a notice of privacy practice. They have the right to inspect it and get a copy of his or her PHI used by the organization. They have the right to amend his or her PHI kept by the organization. So they can tell you to add something in their chart, and they have the right to do that. The patient has the right to restrict the use and disclosure of his or her PHI. The right may be denied based upon certain criteria. So if they want to restrict disclosure, but you think that you really have to let this person, this other physician know about it, then you have the right to do that because of their protection, right? And your protection because of malpractice. So you have the rights for certain things, but they have the right to ask you to do it or not. The patient has the right to authorize or to reject the use or disclosure of his or her PHI for certain activities that do not fall within treatment, payment, or operations. So that's the three big pieces: treatment, payment, and operations. The patient has the right to request and receive an accounting of uses or disclosures of his or her PHI for certain activities that do not fall within treatment, payment, or operations. If they want to know who you sent it to, you got to let them know. You got to let them know how many times you sent it to. You actually have to keep a record of every time you remove PHI from your organization to give it to either a business associate or a patient, and when it comes back in. You have to keep a record of every time PHI leaves your practice, and that's something we find that nobody ever really does. Yes, I sent it to the lab. When did you send it? The day that they came in. I got to go in and look. You have to keep a record of every time you send anything out and every time you receive something back. And you got to mark it that you got received back. And then the patient has the right to file a complaint directly to the organization or to the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Okay? So patient security concern. Patient security concern is basically an American society places a high value on individuals' rights, personal choices, and private spheres projected from intrusion. So 59% of Americans are concerned about their patients' data being breached. So that's a high number. For me, it shows that patients really care about their data, and they care what you do with it. It's not like it's something they're like, well, if you want to send it to this doctor, it's okay. No, it's not okay. They care, and they need to be aware. And they actually will feel better if they think that your whole organization is aware, and they treat security seriously. So how do you get started? One other thing I'd like to show you before I jump in here is there's a sheet inside here that says HIPAA by the numbers, right? If you take a look at that real quick, it has some information that we added in there to let you know why you get breached. So whether it being HIPAA penalties, whether it being average cost per record, really, you get breached because they're able to sell your medical records for about $50 on the black market for each record, and $1 for every credit card number that they find in that record. So for $51, if they get lucky, and if they are able to get your 500, 1,000 patients that come to you regularly, well, that's some dollars. And if you are lax in security, that's why they come after you. It's low-hanging fruit. Hackers are lazy like everybody else. If you're easy to get through, I'll get through it. If you're not, you're harder, well, I'm going to leave you alone. I'm going to go to the next one. Because there's a lot of people that are not secure. So how do you get started? Number one, I highly recommend have a meeting about HIPAA, compliancy, and the whole practice. Bring everybody in. Explain to them that this is just not a pain in the butt. It's important. Remember the slide in the beginning? HIPAA is important. Explain that to them. Start the conversation. And designate a specific HIPAA project manager, a specific HIPAA security officer is what HIPAA calls it. That HIPAA security officer should be then responsible for everything HIPAA, for every policy and procedures that you have, for the notice of privacy, for training, for everything to do with it. And they should put together a plan of attack for you. Determine the next steps and set goals of what you've done and what's left to do. Review the omnibus guidelines. Make sure you have a notice of privacy practice. Make sure you have a BA with every single person you work with. And most importantly, perform a HIPAA security audit, so you need to know what's going on. And that's actually, in this book, in the stuff that we give you, there's a small manual that we wrote. And then this one gives you 12 steps to be HIPAA compliant. Feel free to read it, not right now because I'm talking, but unless you're bored, feel free to read it. And in this manual, it goes into detail of why you should have some of the stuff that's in here, and we're going to get into that. So what else can you do? Number one, encryption. I talked about encryption in laptops. Make sure that your devices that leave your network is encrypted. The new rule coming out, it's not out yet, but they're going to start pointing towards encrypting everything, not only the devices that leave your facility, because they're afraid that somebody can come in and steal one of your desktops, take it under their hand and walk away with it, and it has some PHI in it. So they want everything to be encrypted. It's what they call encryption, data at rest. So data that doesn't go anywhere, they still needed to be encrypted. Backup is key. A lot of people lose PHI because they had a crash. Now, backup is key, but backup by itself is not enough. Make sure you have a disaster recovery plan in place. In other words, make sure you know exactly what to do if a breach happened, or a disaster happened, or Irma came in and dumped a whole bunch of water, or you got a leak because of a faucet, or because of a pipe that burst, whatever it may be. You should have a plan of attack. I'm down, I can't reach my PHI. These are the people I should call first. This is what they're going to do. This is who they're going to inform. This is how I can come back up and running, and this is how I can get my PHI back so I can perform my duties. Secure your communication. And we'll talk about email communication. We'll talk about text messages. Is text messages secure?
No.
Who answered that?
Unless you're using hypertext.
That's right. Well, among others, but yes. Text message is not secure, and you cannot secure it. So let's get that straight. The only way to secure text messages is to use a secure text message application, and the person you're sending that text message to has to have that application as well, right? That's how it works. So just be aware of it. Perform a security audit. That's as important as I've said it many times, but really have somebody come in and scan your network and let you know where you stand from a security perspective. 24 hours monitoring is best. Make sure that somebody's always looking for and is responsible while you're away for your network, and follow 12 steps. That's in that manual. You know, a 12-step program, I don't know, that's how it came out. It happened to be 12-step. That was not on purpose, but that's what happened. Okay. So what can you do to help protect your computer systems? Number one, restrict viewing access to your workstation. Actually walk around your facility. Walk around and see where your workstations are. Walk around to see if your patients are walking in a hallway, can they see those? When a patient comes in to register, when they come into your facility, can they hear the person in front of them talk about their name and why they're here? They should be far away enough so that they can't hear anything. Do that physical walkthrough. Lock the workstation. Make sure it locks after a minute or two. Ideally, we say 3 minutes. Some doctors don't like that because, oh, I have to log in again every 2 minutes. I talk to the patient, I turn around, I have to put my username and password in again. Yes, because if you forgot and you walk to the bathroom, well, then you want to make sure that it locks that session. Do not add your own software unless you know it's the right software. A lot of people will go online and will need something. Oh, this is the software, I'll just download it from the internet. Well, be careful where you're downloading it from, because you never know. Make sure you have policies and procedures written for every HIPAA rule. That's important to know. So and make sure that you follow the organizational policies and procedures. If a device is lost or stolen, compromised, make sure you let somebody know, and hopefully it's encrypted, right? Another big piece here with encryption is mobile device management. So who here has email on their phone? All right. The email on your phone, do you ever get information from the office? Such and such a patient called you. This is their, this is what they want, and you have to respond back. Email by itself is not encrypted. Email by itself is wide open and anybody can see it. When you click send, that email goes out to the world and bounces between as many servers as it could probably bounce on just to reach its destination, because it depends on your provider and the provider you're sending to. So if you're sending somebody who's on a Verizon line and I'm on Time Warner, it has to bounce from Time Warner's network to the internet to Verizon, right? It goes through more servers than it is from Time Warner to Time Warner. It's the reality of life. Because it's bouncing on servers and that message is unsecured, any of those servers can then be intercepted. Your message can be intercepted and read. But if that message is secure and encrypted, if they intercept it, they can't read it. They let it go. And it's not like there's one person sitting there looking at messages being sent. There's bots out there that all they do is scan the internet to try to get information. Because if they're able to get that info, they let the hackers know, hey, I found somebody for you. And then the hacker will start working on it. This is how it works. It's automated, and it gives you a list of leads, if you will, of these are the easy prey. So go after that. Audit controls. You could activate audit controls on your desktops and servers. So now you know which employee did what. What did they open? What did they look at? How many times did they look at it? That way, if anything did happen, you can go back and look at your audit log and say, hey, I see in the log, this is what happened and this is the reason it happened. If you don't have audit control turned on, it's very hard for a professional to come in and find out exactly what happened. Now, this is nothing you have to buy. This is something that your IT person should provide for you and do for you. But it has to be done, and it does require hard drive space. So a lot of time, IT people turn it off, especially if you don't have a lot of hard drive space. Hard drive space, though, is inexpensive. So if you don't, you should upgrade to a bigger hard drive and make sure you have auditing turned on, not only on Windows, but on your application as well. So whoever uses it, whether you're using EagleSoft or whether you're using Henry Schein and Dentrix or whatever you're using, make sure auditing is turned on across the board. Email security. So a lot of people send email, and some email need to be encrypted, which means when you send an email that's encrypted, it goes out in a format that nobody can read if it's intercepted, but when the recipient receives it, they receive it as an email that says, you've received an encrypted email, a secured message. Please click here to read it. You go into a portal, they sign in, then they're able to read that message, right? You guys received that from your bank if you do any work with them. Insurance companies are doing more and more of this. You should be doing the same. But not only that, you should have a mechanism in place that scans for HIPAA rules as you send it out. Because there's two different ways to encrypt email. One is manual. In other words, one is type secure somewhere in the subject line or somewhere in the body of the email, then it will automatically get encrypted. If you don't type secure, it won't know to encrypt it. You're then relying on the end user, your employee, to remember to secure that message before they send it. Well, as we know, like I said in the beginning, 95% of hacks happen because of humans. If we didn't have humans, IT would be very secure. I promise you that. But the big piece here is there's scanners in place that will look at the email that you sent out and will see if you have 2 or more PHI in the email. In other words, it will look for a social security number, the digits, the way that they look. It will look for a name. It will also look for a diagnosis like cardiology or a name of some sort, right? And if you have those combinations, it will know that this has some PHI in it that should not be sent. It will automatically then encrypt it for you. So it scans. Now, if you get audited because you sent something out and it didn't get encrypted, but you have that tool in place, you're no longer responsible because you've implemented that tool. You can come and say, hey, I have this. It just didn't get caught. If you don't have it in place, then you're willful and have been caused that to happen. So encryption is a good start. Awareness education. Everyone who has access to HI has had awareness, education, and training on HIPAA regulations and compliance. This includes third-party hosting services or anybody else you use. Data disposal. So your copiers, you get rid of them. Every piece of paper that you usually scan gets an image of it on a hard drive on the copier. Make sure if you get rid of your copier, whether being leased or not, that you get a destruction certificate from that company that your hard drive has been destroyed properly. It's called an NIST certificate, and make sure you have that. Any computer that you have, laptop that you have, that you get rid of, make sure that hard drive is out of them, and you get that certificate as well. Regional Recycling is a local recycling company that will come in and take your hard drives and give you that NIST certificate. And basically, well, they charge you for it, but it's not that much money. It's a couple of bucks per drive. But it's important to do. Okay. Encryption, user verification, access code, automatic log-offs, all the things that we talked about. Encryption is a good start. So most importantly, this is your checklist. This is what we recommend. 24 hours monitoring. This is part of HIPAA security rules. So if you, underneath it here, some say best practices, some say security rule. So 24 hours, 7 days a week monitoring is a rule that HIPAA would like to know that your network is secure from that perspective. That there is, not that somebody's sitting there watching it, but there is tools in place to alert somebody to do something about it while it happens, not the next day. Because then by the next day it's too late. This is where the hole is, and this is how people can gain access, and this is how you patch it. Please make sure you install that patch. Well, hackers will go onto that site and will read all that. So now they have a blueprint on how to access you if you did not do the patch updates. So that's why security patches are key, because it's a gateway for hackers. We talked about backup, obviously that's part of the security rules, but I've talked about disaster recovery as well. So this is an example of what disaster recovery will do for you. If you have a server that crashed, and you need to come back up and running. If you just have backup, you have to fix that server and restore from backup, right? That's what everybody does, that's what everybody here is aware. A disaster recovery appliance solution can work like this. It images the server every 10 minutes. Anything that you write on that server happens on that appliance. Something happens to your server, you walk up, it's on fire. So you walk up to that appliance and you say, you are now going to assume the role of the server. From 10 minutes ago, you have the latest data, boot up as the server. You continue working while somebody comes in with the fire extinguisher, puts the fire out of the server, and then gets that repaired, but you're still operational and functioning. Your whole office is working. Once that's repaired, restore on that server happens, and so that's why disaster recovery is key. Firewall, I mean, that goes without saying. Make sure you have a high-level firewall. Though there's inexpensive firewalls you buy at Best Buy or what have you, and those really don't cut the mustard because they're easy to hack. And firewall that has two things you need to look for. One, most importantly, is called IPS. If your firewall doesn't have IPS, replace it. IPS, it stands for Intrusion Prevention System. Target had a big hack a few years ago. I'm sure everybody heard about it. 120 million records got stolen, credit card numbers and what have you. The reason why it happened is they had an IPS system, and the IPS system told them that there is a breach. And they went to the CEO and said, we don't know where the breach is coming from, but we got it could be a false positive, but we want to investigate this. And the only way to investigate it properly is to bring all the stores down, for the amount of hours we'll need to get that fixed. Now, that happened during Christmas time. Target makes about $1 million an hour during Christmas time if you add them all together. They're like, the CEO is like, there's no way you're taking me down. Could be 24 hours, 48 hours, because there's no way this is happening. Try to find out what's happening while everybody's operational. They did find out what's happening, but it took 4 days. And that was too late then. They would have fixed it a lot quicker if that happened. Now that CEO lost his job, among other things, and everybody's talking like me, talks about Target and their hack. But that's really what happened. It happened because of an email as well. Okay, another checklist, encryption, offsite copy of your backup, encrypt all backup. Security policy, make sure you have it written and everybody's aware of it and signs off on it. Make sure you have antivirus, but antivirus by itself, regular antivirus is very important to have, but antivirus by itself is not as it used to be. I said it here now, remember I said that in the next few years antivirus will be dead, nobody will be talking about that anymore, because hackers are becoming smarter. The way antiviruses works is it goes out and gets the latest definitions and brings that back down, and if you have a virus that's in that definition, it will stop it, right? Everybody's aware of that? That's how it works? But now because hackers are becoming smarter, what they're doing is parts of a virus come to you and it builds itself on your workstation. But not only that, it changes its attributes to the workstation's attribute. It uses its MAC address. It uses different nomenclature to change its attributes so that antivirus can't capture it. But it works the same way. So the new antivirus software that's being developed does not require a definition. What it requires to know is how viruses work. And if it does that function the same way a virus does, it could be a good application or not, it will put what we call a rollback point onto that function on the entire PC. And if it ends up to being a virus, you could roll back to right before it happened. But be aware and make sure that you have good antivirus. Make sure the computer locks automatically. Make sure every single user at your company have their own username and password. Don't share username and passwords, because if something happens, we can't find out who did it. And most importantly, wherever your server is, make sure it's secured behind closed doors and it's well ventilated. Make sure you have a power backup unit associated with it. Make sure that only a specific amount of people have access to that room, and every time they go in and out of that room, that they mark on somewhere that they went in and out of that room. Because if they go in and something becomes missing, you want to find out who was in that room at that specific time. Employees can become disgruntled, people can become malicious. I'm sure everybody that you work with is an angel, but some of them have horns. So, there's HIPAA compliant services out there, and we do provide one. So I'll talk about what the HIPAA compliant service does in general. Number one, it simplifies HIPAA, and you need to know all the rules, and the rules change all the time. So that's the reason why we started offering it. So IT security is lacking, security audit, no risk assessment, no employee training, no BEAs being written, no place to really capture all that information. Why should we care? Why should you care? And how can we, and how are we providing the service? I'll talk about that right now. So is HIPAA going away? Trump is in charge now. He doesn't like regulations. He's cutting them all left and right. One thing he's not going to cut is HIPAA. A couple of reasons. One, they did hire 8,000 new auditors, so these people need to pay for themselves. So they will be out there hunting. No mention of HIPAA from Washington so far. HIPAA fines have continued to be imposed since January, and it continues to grow. The number continues to grow. Feds hired 8,000 new HIPAA auditors, I said that. HIPAA legislation was passed on a bipartisan basis, so everybody wanted it. This is one thing that they agree on. Not much. Texas has its own HIPAA legislation on top of the federal requirements. And that's Texas. And they don't like regulation. But that's how important it is. It's important to take HIPAA seriously. It's important to take security seriously. In general, your information is also on your network. It's not only your patient's information. Your own personal information is there. You get hacked, people have your detail. Before I get to the slide, there is a tool we use called the dark web tool. I can put in your domain, like, and our website is mvpworks.com, or whatever your website may be. I can do a scan of the dark web, and I'd say 90% of the time, I'll come back with your username and a password that you've used now or in the past. And what happens when you change your password from one to the other? Do you change it completely, or do you just add an exclamation point at the end of it and one at the beginning of it and maybe a number here and there, right? I mean, isn't that what happens? Hackers know that. And there's tools out there that auto-generates They go out there and do a search, finds what your password used to be, and they say, well, it's probably a variation of this. Let's have our tool go out there and try it 10 million times until we find what the new password is. It's important to know that, and to know that this stuff is available and it's out there. So be careful. So what do we hear? We hear HIPAA's too complicated. Who has time for this? I don't understand it. We don't have the budget for it. I don't have time or the money to do it. There's no time. We'll get around to it someday. I won't have a breach because we're too small. Who cares about my stuff? They don't enforce HIPAA. Nobody cares about HIPAA. That's all not true. It's being enforced, and everybody cares, especially your patients. Your patients care. I'm doing it right already, or thinking you got everything covered. So 80% of small businesses practices are not HIPAA compliant. There's a small video that I'll run.
The key to this is to have somebody in the inside or someone
Can you hear that
who has
okay?
access to our social security numbers, to our date of birth, and a lot of these individuals are insiders in big institutions, in banks, hospitals, schools, clinics.
We would approach anyone who worked at like a dental office, anybody who worked in the medical field. You would just approach them, you tell them if they get you 100 names, you would give them $1,000.
These people easy to find in Miami?
Very easy. Very easy.
As you would think, if you went in and started knocking doors and asking people that worked in hospitals and doctors' offices and dentists' offices, somebody would call the cops.
They needed the money more than they wanted to call the cops. Everybody was with it. Everybody was with the scam.
Was this like a community of people doing this?
More like a nation of people doing this.
It's gone from hundreds of people filing hundreds of fraudulent returns to thousands of people filing millions of fraudulent returns.
Fair enough? Does that give you the magnitude of what we're talking about? That how serious it is? That you need to be aware of this and do something about it? This is basically what ransomware looks like. We talked about it. It gives you have 72 hours. There's actually a counter that happens. So I wanted to put there just to let you know. So, number one, do a thorough risk assessment. There is 48 main questions that needs to be answered for your risk assessment, besides all the information about your company. And within 1 to 2 hours of answering those questions, you got to take those and create a risk assessment from it. That risk assessment allows you to find out what you have going on, what's left to do, and what else you should do. And then number two is you should train all your people. There's 2 different trainings they should take, the HIPAA training and the security training. Make your people aware of what to look for online. I can tell you, if they're aware, they won't click, they'll be able to see, and they'll stop 95% of the hacks. It's literally a high. Humans are the cause of most hacks. Because, like the guy said, I went to somebody and asked them to give me their stuff. Sometimes they can't hack you, but they can trick somebody into clicking on something that will allow them to hack you. So if you train them, that will stop. Have HIPAA policies and procedures written and updated on a regular basis. By the way, the risk assessment needs to be done how often?
Once a year.
Thank you. You get a book. I'll give it to you. How are you? There you go. Thanks.
Thanks.
We put together a HIPAA compliance portal that allows you to log in, that has all the trainings that you need, has all policies and procedures templated for your need if you want to use them. But you do have to take them and tweak them and make them your own. But that portal also allows you to keep track of all your BAs, all your contracts, your work plan of what you need to do because of the risk assessment, and any other PHI that comes in and out. You have a place for incident responses, and you have a place to keep track of PHIs come in and out. We automated that, made a portal so that you could see it. Portal is easy to use. We also, if you sign up, we do give you $100,000 financial protection. So we do give you an insurance policy with you signing up. It does have a place, like I said, to track all your security incidences and response, what happened, who did it, when did they call you about it. You put it in there and you're able to track it. If you ever get audited, you just go to the portal and print everything out. Then you have one place to go for all your information. And then you track your business associates. Make sure everything is signed. So that if somebody comes and asks you questions, you're not fumbling through the drawers trying to find that associate agreement that you have signed. You're not wondering if people have took their training or not, because in our system, the trainings are available, but it'll tell you which employee took which training and where did they stop. At the end of the training, they actually have to take a test. And that test then, if they pass it, they get a certificate that they've been trained. And the certificate says human training on it, human security training on it. Compliance tool, obviously allows you to offer outstanding customer service, cover entities like I talked about, and we put as much reference library and all new rules and regulations and things you could think of all within that tool. So the bottom line is, you need to get serious about getting HIPAA compliance and do your yearly risk assessment. Don't forget it. Please make sure you do it. So what does that look like? There's 4 steps that you should do. Number 1, do a security audit. So have somebody come in and scan your network and let you know where your deficiencies are from a network perspective, right? What's lacking in your security right now? How are your employees using your company's own devices? Are they encrypted? Do you have mobile device management on them? Are your system truly backed up? Do you have a disaster recovery plan in place? Why are you exposed? What are your risks? Whose job is it to make sure that your network is protected, and how are they doing? Right? It's always good to get a second opinion. 2, do your risk assessment. After your security audits, make sure you complete your 48 questions and generate that risk assessment document and a completed work plan so that you know this is where we are, this is where our high risks, medium, and low risks are, and this is where we need to be. Implement all items found in the risk assessment. It's not set it and forget it. Make sure you set it and update it, and make sure, like I said, like all the patches, it needs to be updated. So does your risk assessment, and so is monitoring your network, because your attackers aren't setting it and forgetting it. And the number 4 is train all your employees on HIPAA and security. Because if you do that, then guess what? You're in a much better place, 95%. What's the percentage? 95%. All right, so what we're offering, we've been MVP Network Consulting. I'll let you know a little bit about us. Like I said, we've been open for 15 years on August 8th. That's our 15th year anniversary with 44 employees. We've been the 8th District Dental Society IT company of choice for about 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 years now. We also manage close to 1,100 physicians altogether. Our focus is healthcare, so that's what we live and breathe. But what makes us unique is if you work with us, you get assigned a virtual CIO that looks at your company overall holistically and help guide you through everything that we discussed. But not only that, we also are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're offering, just by the way, for 5 people, not everybody because we'll be closed. But for 5 people, we're offering a free audit. We'll come in and scan your network and give you the report. Not the risk assessment, but the security audit. So there's a little card inside your folder. If you're interested, fill it out, and we'll take the first 5. And if you're interested, we'll call you anyways, and we'll help you. And this is what we'll do. You'll get a big report, and the report will basically, everything that you see here, perform an external and internal vulnerability scan. We'll audit your company's internet usage, botnet activities, website activities. We'll check your network's backup, make sure that it's working properly, allow you to sleep better at night, knowing that your data is secure. We'll check your computer and services for spyware. Not all of them, but we'll check for most of them for spyware. And the reason why I'm saying not all of them, because it depends on the size of your firm. The scan will let us know. We kind of like handpick some computers and we'll find out what's happening. Most of the time, if you have a problem with one, it duplicates itself and we're able to find it that way. But the scan tells us which computer to look deeper into. So we run the scan, we look at the scan, and we then get some more detail about specific machines. And then access overall security. We look at that for you, and we give you that report, and we give you our recommendations. So that's step one. So what do you do? Number one, fill out your card in a folder, hand it in, or email jstewart@mvpworks.com, or call this number. And that's basically what it is. Last but not least, I do have here somewhere your verification code. Any questions before I give that out? Because everybody's staying here for it. Go ahead.
I have one quick question. Regarding texting, if it's the patient's information, they're texting you, a parent or a child, let's say, or they send you a photo because they have a question that is better explained with a photo, but they're sending it to you, can you respond to them if they're...
That's a very good question. If they initiated it and they're okay with the response, then yes. But you have to be, what I would do in that case is screenshot that they initiated the conversation with you. I would prefer, because I'm more on the security side, that if they initiated it, you just call them back. And instead of sending the text back and forth. But because they initiated it legally, you can, but my response would be to call them back. Go ahead.
So how soon are they going to start breaking into our phone conversation?
Who?
The hackers, anybody who wants our stuff.
Right now.
When are they going to do that? Right now they're doing it? So
Yeah, I mean, a phone conversation is just data. Your phone call is voice over IP now. Our life's changed. Everything is data. It's encapsulated. The
we
big
can't
piece,
talk, we can't write, we can't text, we can't email.
you can talk, all right, because once the conversation happens, to break into the conversation requires them to break through your carrier first, which is a lot harder to do. The NSA can do it. The government can do it. Hackers really will shy away from that because the penalties are a lot more severe. What's a lot less severe and harder to track is breaking into your IT network. But can it be done legally, Philip? Not legally, but can it be done physically? Yes. Any other questions?
Yes. Can you protect our phones, our cell phones, our smartphones?
Yes. So, thank you. So smartphones, especially if you have PHI in it, or if you have applications that allow you to log into your network, that should be protected. And the smartphone should be encrypted. There's a tool out there called MDM, Mobile Device Management. And what it does is it sits on your phone, and it encrypts the hard drive on your phone. So if you lost it, then you lost it. But it does a lot more than that. It does geofencing. Geofencing is you could actually put a ring around a specific facility, and if somebody walks with it, that had mobile device management, walks within that facility, maybe their camera icon disappears off their phone. When they walk out, it reappears because you don't want to allow them to take pictures of your facility. You could, I can go on and on of what mobile device management could do. Most importantly, though, you could selective wipe the phone. So if the phone doesn't belong to you, it belongs to your employee. But for them to do their job right, you want them to have email on their phone. Well, what if the employee decides to quit or become disgruntled and you decide to get rid of them? Well, they have your email on their phone. They're not going to go give you their phone. They're not going to play nice in the sandbox. You have to have the capability to selective wipe only your data off their phone, but not wipe all their pictures. So it's not, I'm going to go wipe out the phone like you would with what Apple provides you or Android provides you. You can completely wipe out the phone. If you do that, you're going to wipe out their personal information. You're going to have a lawsuit on your hands. So with mobile device management, you can decide what to wipe out on the phone. Now, mobile device management does not give you the capability to view somebody's texts on their phone or view who they called or any of their personal information. It only allows you controls over data that belongs to you. Does that answer your question?
Yes. That would mean that cell phones at workplaces would then become HIPAA compliant.
Correct. If you have mobile device management, it is. If you don't, leave them in your purse. Or if you're a guy, leave them in your purse. All right. Any other questions? Did you guys find this beneficial? Or did I ramble on?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Good. Thank you. Well, I hope you find it beneficial. I hope you find the information in your folder beneficial. In the folder, you'll find a couple extra things. One, that card. If you're interested in the cybersecurity assessment, let us know. There's a very nice pen and a better book for you to write some information in, so I'm hoping you took some notes, and while we offer for the HIPAA security services. Hope you guys found this beneficial. I appreciate your time. What time is it? All right, 10 minutes to spare, so I tried to make it a little faster, but it was still an hour. But I hope you guys find it beneficial, and thank you very much. Give me a call with any questions. I'm available anytime, and you could reach me at Ikram, I-K-R-A-M, I'll repeat that, I-K-R-A-M at mvpworks.com. Okay, so any questions? Just if you are wondering about HIPAA, if you're wondering if you should do something, yes or no, just ask me, I'll respond. Okay? Thanks a lot, everybody. Oh, yeah, the code.